In the previous section, we looked at some baselining queries that showed you what processes are accessing your cloud credential files on your Linux operating system. And we now need to look at a query that kind of separates legitimate access via something like this. So you're using the AWS CLI, normally as you normally would, versus someone that is accessing the cloud credential file through something like a cat versus someone that is attempting to exfiltrate this credential file through a C2 framework, something like Mythic as an example. So let's look at this query, which is very similar to the types of queries that we've been looking at so far. And we once again start off with renaming some fields just to keep things a little bit more clear. And we once again use a very similar regex here, looking for your AWS credentials, your Azure credentials, your G-Cloud credentials, etc. And again, don't forget that all this can be modified. You can add additional regular expressions to match other sensitive files that something like Trufflehog discovered on your file system. A good example is maybe SSH keys, kubeconfig files, or certificates and things of that nature. We are then adding another qualifier here that looks at whether the base image of these processes are legitimate tools. So your Google Cloud SDK, the Python distribution that is installed when you configure the Azure CLI, the AWS CLI binary itself, as well as Python, which is used when you operate the AWS CLI, normally as you normally would on the command line. And this also looks for cat. So this looks for someone that just goes ahead and displays the contents of your cloud credentials. And it also looks for any base image that is found in home. So this will catch things that are, downloaded to the home drive, maybe adding temp here as well, or something like a web server directory for web shells and things like that. Might be good additions to this kind of thing. Once again, this query is available in your workshop materials. Again, please feel free to modify it, use it how you see fit. It's hard to provide, out of the box production ready queries for every environment, but queries like this, qualifier queries specifically, are a huge favorite of mine, specifically because they allow this kind of flexibility to match different kinds of environments. So we then concatenate all the qualifiers, add up the score. And this line here, line 43, is where you can kind of filter out, items or execution chains that don't meet a certain threshold. And it's difficult to demonstrate in a lab environment, but if you had, different sets of executions here that had a score that is lower than something that is malicious, you can go ahead and add a threshold here. So hopefully this query makes sense. Again, it's annotated. Please feel free to modify it, play around with it. And if we look at our results, we could see the three different kind of swim lanes, if you will, presenting themselves here. We see legitimate AWS CLI use, and this is the file that was accessed, our AWS credentials, and this is the process that accessed them, so Python. And this is what's used when you kind of use the AWS CLI normally day to day. The manual catting of the cloud credentials is also here, as well as our suspicious credential access. And once again, this flagged because this Poseidon bin file was found in the home directory. So you can see the different scores here. We assigned a score of 3 for the legitimate use, 30 of the manual catting of the creds, and all the way to 60 for suspicious credential access. So hopefully, again, that all makes sense. Once again, please feel free to play around and tweak this query as you see fit. But that wraps up this section. And in the next sections, we are going to be looking at stealing web session cookies. So I'll see everyone in the next video. Thank you.